The innocent king and the freed rebel. Reading Luke 23, 1-25. Then the whole assembly got up and brought him before Pilate. They began to accuse him, saying, "We found this man misleading our people, forbidding to pay taxes to Caesar, and claiming that he himself is Christ the king." So Pilate asked him, "Are you king of the Jews?" And he answered him, "It's just as you say." Then Pilate said to the chief priests and the crowds, "I find no fault in this man." But they were insistent, saying, "He stirs up the people, teaching throughout all Judea, from Galilee where he began, even to this place." When Pilate heard it, he asked whether the man was a Galilean. And when he learned that he belonged to Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who was in Jerusalem at the time. Now when Herod saw Jesus, he was exceedingly glad, for he had wanted to see him for a long time, because he had heard about him, and he was hoping to see some sign performed by him. So he questioned him at some length, but Jesus made no reply. The chief priests and scribes were standing there, continually accusing him heatedly. Herod with his soldiers, after treating him with contempt and mocking him, dressed him in a gorgeous robe and sent him back to Pilate. Now that very day Herod and Pilate became friends with each other. Before this, they had been enemies. Pilate called together the chief priests and the rulers and the people, and he said to them, "You brought this man before me as one who was perverting and misleading the people. And behold, after examining him before you, I have found no basis for your charges against him. Nor indeed did Herod, for he sent him back to us, and in fact he has done nothing worthy of death. Therefore I will punish him to teach him a lesson and release him." But they loudly shouted out all together, saying, "Away with this man, and release Barabbas to us." He was one who had been thrown into prison for an insurrection that had occurred in the city, and for murder. Pilate addressed them again, wanting to release Jesus, but they kept shouting, "Crucify, crucify him." A third time he said to them, "Why? What wrong has he done? I have found no guilt, no crime, no offense in him deserving death. Therefore I will punish him and release him." But they were insistent and unrelenting, demanding with loud voices that he be crucified, and their voices began to prevail. And Pilate made the verdict that their demand should be granted. He released the man they were asking for, who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, but he handed Jesus over to their will. Pilate's courtroom became a mirror for the world's moral collapse. Both he and Herod stood face to face with truth incarnate, yet each avoided conviction by compromise. Pilate's repeated declaration, "I find no fault in this man," revealed that innocence was clear, but courage was absent. Fear of losing political favor overruled justice. Herod, driven by curiosity, treated the Holy One as a spectacle rather than a savior. When Jesus remained silent, Herod mocked what he could not understand, clothing him in borrowed glory while despising the true king. This trial was more than a miscarriage of justice. It was the world's verdict against righteousness itself. Their false charges, inciting rebellion, forbidding taxes, claiming kingship, were distortions of the truth, echoes of earlier attempts to trap Jesus. Yet divine irony ruled the moment. The man accused of rebellion submitted perfectly to authority. The one charged with forbidding tribute had already affirmed Caesar's due. The king on trial would soon reign from a cross. Every accusation became a prophecy of his glory. Pilate's indecision was moral failure, wrapped in political calculation. He sought a compromise, scourge the innocent, release the guilty. For what reason? Well, to appease both conscience and the crowd. There's a deeper rot, though. Fear of man displaces the fear of God. In the end, the governor who washed his hands could not wash his soul. Between the shouts of "Crucify" and the silence of heaven, history learned that neutrality in the face of truth is rebellion against it. When righteousness stands trial, silence does not absolve guilt. compromise with evil even for peace, crucifies truth anew. The takeaway: innocence was not vindicated by the courts of men, but by the cross of God. Pilate's weakness, Herod's mockery, and the mob's fury converged into the plan of redemption. The king who stood silent before his accusers now speaks forgiveness to all who bow before him. When we fear men more than God, justice crumbles. But when we entrust ourselves to Christ, no verdict of earth can overturn the judgment of heaven.